So today we are going to be doing the final tutorial for our Prima 31 Frank Garcia mini album. Today we will be finishing off the back of the fourth page, the inside back cover, the front and back covers, and doing some decorating. So stay tuned. Alright, let's go ahead and get started by choosing some pattern paper to go on the base part of our back of our fourth page, some pattern paper to go on top of our black glitter paper for the inside back cover, and some paper that will go on our little mini flap that we will create to go on the back of the fourth page. And then we're going to go ahead and cut a piece of black cardstock to 8 1/4 by 4 3/4. And then we are going to score it at 1/2 inch on the long side so that we end up with a flap that is 4 1/4 by 8 1/4. And then let's go ahead and cut our pattern paper that we chose for our flap in half so that we have a piece for our front and our back. So we're going to move on to the inside back cover, and we're going to take our piece of pattern paper that we chose for our back, and we are going to cut it at 2 inches and then 6 inches or 4 inches, however you want to look at it, so that you end up with a 2-inch piece, a 4-inch piece, and then a 2-inch piece. And then we're going to go ahead and cut a piece of black cardstock so that we can create a bit of a pocket, if you will, and we are going to cut that to 4 1/4 by 8 inches. Let's cut another piece of black cardstock to 4 1/4 by 8 3/4, and then we're going to score at the 1/2 inch mark along the short side, and we're going to just create a flap that will open that is the same size as the little pocket piece that we just cut. And then let's also go ahead and cut a piece of pattern paper in half to go one on the top part of your little pocket and one on the underside of your flap. Alright, so moving on back to the back of the fourth page, we are going to work on our little photo mat component that we're going to attach to our flap. To do this, we are going to choose a piece of either our cut-aparts or a journaling card. I chose one of the easy journaling cards out of the 3x4 journaling card pack. And then we're going to cut a piece of black cardstock to 9 inches by 3 1/2 inches, and then we're going to score on the short side at 4 1/2 inches so that we create this little folding photo mat. And then we're going to cut a piece of black glitter cardstock to go underneath the journaling card, and we're going to cut that to 4 1/4 by 3 1/4. So now we're going to go ahead and ink up the edges of all of the pattern paper and our black glitter cardstock, and then we're going to glue down our flap to the left side of the page and apply our pattern paper on top of the flap only for now. Alright, so to finish off our little photo mat component that we're building, we're going to add a couple of magnets on the inside so that this will stay closed on its own. And then we're going to go ahead and glue down the black glitter cardstock and our journaling card. So to finish off the inside of our little photo mat card, we're going to actually cut and adhere our two photo mats. So we're going to cut those to 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. We're going to stamp our little camera stamp, and then we're going to glue them to the inside. Alright, so let's go ahead and finish off the inside of this. We're going to add a couple of magnets to the back of the flap and then to the main page to match the ones on the back flap. And then we're going to go ahead and glue down our pattern paper to our base page and our pattern paper to the back of our flap. And then our last step will be to apply our little photo mat component, and to do that we're just going to apply glue on the right back half of the card and then adhere it down just halfway across. I eyeballed it to the best of your ability, really. You can measure if you want. Alright, so we're going to move back to the inside back cover, and let's just make sure that we have all of our pattern paper and our black glitter paper inked up on the edges, and then we're going to go ahead and glue down our black glitter paper. Alright, so now we're going to grab our flap that we created with the 1/2 inch tab, and we are going to go ahead and get that glued down. Now I'm just going to measure the center. I find it a little bit harder to kind of eyeball it on glitter paper for some reason, but you can eyeball it or measure, whichever works best for you. And let's just make sure that that is pressed down really, really well, because it's harder to glue cardstock to glitter paper than it is normal paper. And then next we're going to glue on our two 2-inch pieces of pattern paper, one on the left side, leaving a little bit on each side, and then one on the right. And now we're going to go ahead and glue down our piece of cardstock that is going to be used to create a little pocket. So we are going to apply glue on the top and bottom short edges, and then along one side of the long edge, and we're going to create a pocket that faces towards the outside of the book. Alright, so let's go ahead and apply a couple of magnets on the inside of our flap, so on our little pocket piece and then on the flap that flips up. And then we're going to go ahead and glue down our pattern paper on the inside and outside of our flap. Alright, so now we're going to move on to creating the inserts for our pocket pages. To do this, we're going to need to cut 4 pieces of cardstock to 7 3/4 by 8 1/2, and then we are going to select 4 pieces of pattern paper, and we're going to cut those to 7 1/2 by 8. So to finish off the tops of our inserts, we're going to cut 4 pieces of black glitter cardstock to 7 1/2 by 1/4. And as you can see, I kind of screwed up my original cuts and had to go back and cut 1/4 inch off of each one of them. But anyway, we'll go ahead and ink everything up, and then we're going to glue everything down and insert our large photo mats into our pockets. So I'm going to put a little work into my front cover. I'm not really sure what I wanted to do with it, but I did want to use this cute little 3x3 cut apart from the collection. It just says magical. It has a cute little cauldron with pink smoke coming out of it that matches perfectly with the pink cobweb paper. So I backed it with some black glitter cardstock that I just cut to 3 1/4 by 3 1/4, and I'm just going to play around with some of the ephemera and flowers and whatnot from the collection to see what I might want to do. In the end, I still am not sure what I want to do, so I'm going to move on to other steps while I consider what else I can do. Alright, so while I'm considering what else I want to do with my front cover, I'm going to go ahead and glue down my black glitter cardstock on my front cover, my spine, and my back cover. So to finish off my back cover, I'm just going to go through my chipboard pieces and find a piece of chipboard or ephemera that I like just to kind of accent my back cover. In the end, I chose one that said pumpkin from my chipboard pieces. I'm just going to go ahead and glue my pattern paper down, and then I'm going to apply my little chipboard piece in the bottom center. So let's go ahead and just glue our piece of pattern paper to the front cover so that it doesn't get ruined or used for something else accidentally while I still work on figuring out what I want to do with my cover. Alright, spending some more time trying to figure out what I want to do with my front cover. In the end, I am going to go with some simple flowers and my glitter-backed magical cut-apart, and then another little cat cut-apart that I'm also going to back with some black glitter cardstock, and then a little black glitter spider that I cut out from a die from Stampin' Up. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get all of this glued down. So for the back of my magical piece, I am going to glue down that piece to my black glitter cardstock, and then I'm going to put a piece of chipboard behind it just so that it will have a little bit more dimension. I'll glue down my little cat cut apart that says Boo to the black glitter cardstock. That will kind of tuck under the bottom right corner a little bit of the magical cut apart, and then I'm going to put a little half spider web that's going to be tucked into the top, kind of to the right of my magical cut apart, and then I'm going to glue the flowers and one of the leaf pieces to the bottom left area around my magical cut apart. Alright, so kind of skipping ahead to the front of the 4th page, we are going to put 3 of these little cut-aparts from the collection just in a line vertically down the half-page flap that we have. So I'm just going to cut 3 pieces of black cardstock to just back the little cut aparts, and then I'm going to ink around the edges, and to give them a little bit more pop, I am going to use 3 pieces of chipboard on the backs of them to give them a little bit more dimension. Alright, so I need some little tags and smaller photo mats and whatnot to go inside my pockets that I have on a couple of different pages. So I'm just going to take some of my scrap pieces of cardstock, some of my little cut aparts, ephemera, flowers, tag punches, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a couple handfuls of little pieces to add to my pockets. So I'm just going to put it on fast forward. I'm not going to walk you through how I made each and every one of these, but you can slow it down on YouTube and watch more closely if you so desire. Alright, now that we have these made, let's go ahead and add some of them to the pockets on the back of our first page. Alright, it looks like we never finished off the inside of the back of the third page, so let's go ahead and do that. The photo mats are cut to 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 for the portrait style one, and then the one that's almost square is cut to 4 3/4 by 5 1/4, and then we're going to back those with pieces of black cardstock, and we're going to cut the one piece to 4 1/4 by 6 1/2, and then the other piece to 5 inches by 5 1/2 inches. So we want to add a little bit of decoration to these. We don't want to just leave them plain on the page like this. So let's go ahead and glue the photo mats down. And then we are going to use some pieces of ephemera and or cut aparts to add a little bit of accent to these. So we are going to use all the candy from the ephemera pack on the almost square photo mat. And we're just going to cut a piece of black cardstock to mat that on to 6 3/4 by 7/8 of an inch. We're going to glue it down, and then we are going to use a piece of chipboard on the back of it to just pop it up before gluing it down just below the photo mat. Alright, so for the other side, we are going to use a couple pieces of the cut aparts, and we're going to just back them with some black cardstock. You can use other pieces of ephemera, you can use some of your chipboard pieces, you can use some flowers, it's entirely up to you. I used the cut aparts, I backed them and glued them down, and then the one with the kind of like polka dot look, I glued down first to just behind where I would place my photo mat, which I'm going to place in the center of my page. And then I glued down my photo mat over top of that, and then I glued down my little witch just over top of it in the bottom right hand corner without putting any glue that would cover my photo mat. Alright, so our little half flap here also has a pocket, so let's take some more of our pre-made little inserts and fill it up. And since I still have some extras left, I'm going to make sure that I have enough in all of my pockets. Alright, so because I still have some pattern paper left, I'm going to create an extra little photo mat that's going to tuck into the back of the 4th page. So I'm going to cut my pattern paper to 4.5 by 8, and then I'm going to back it with a piece of black cardstock that I cut to 4 3/4 by 8 1/4. Alright, so for my the inside of my back page, I'm going to create one more photo mat. I'm going to cut a piece of my pattern paper to 6 inches by 4.5 inches. And then I'm going to cut a piece of black cardstock to 4 1/4 by 4 3/4 inches, and then glue it down. Alright, and to finish off my little photo mat, I'm going to add a piece of ephemera, and I'm just going to back it with some black cardstock. So I'm just going to trace it out, cut around the trace with a little bit extra to spare. I'm going to erase the pencil marks, obviously, glue my ephemera piece onto the cardstock, and then glue the cardstock piece to my photo mat. And then I will tuck it in the back pocket on the inside back cover. Alright, so the last thing that I need to do is attach my little chunky charm that I made. I did not film this, I'm not very good at it, but I do enjoy them. So I made a little chunky charm using some chain and other assorted pieces and beads and whatnot, along with some of the charms that were part of the collections. There was like some witches' hats and some cauldrons and some pink and black pumpkins and a little haunted house looking thing. So I just went ahead and created one of those, and I attached it using one of these little ring rivets. They're kind of like Chicago screws with a piece that comes out of them and a ring around it. They work really, really well for adding these, and they're pretty solid. So that's the end of the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this and will enjoy recreating a book of your own. As always, if you're interested in seeing more, don't forget to click on that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, everyone.